Hello everyone, and once again it's time to delve back into the lore of World of Warcraft. Today I'm going to be talking about Sylvanas Windrunner and her role in the past a little bit, just as a recap, but also what she could be doing in Legion, because she is definitely, in my view, one of the most interesting characters in the whole Warcraft franchise. While she isn't the first person who comes to mind when you think about Gul'dan, Illidan, or Sagaris, she's actually featured on Legion's website with her blurb reading as follows: "The Forsaken's ruthless leader is a formidable champion of her people. But with the Burning Legion's invasion, the stakes for the Dark Lady have never been higher. Should Sylvanas perish, her demise will be the beginning of her eternal damnation. All that stand between her and doom are her Valkyr, yet few of these spirit guardians remain. As her fate edges closer to the abyss, Sylvanas must decide how far she'll go to protect her people, and whether they are more precious than her soul." This really does set her up for a lot, but there's one massive thing that it doesn't allude to: her sister. But before we get on to that, I'm going to give you a quick once-over of her lore. I'll probably throw up an annotation so you can skip ahead if you already know the stuff. She was killed and raised by Arthas when he ravaged Kel'Thuzad. She eventually broke free of control, got her body back, and worked to fight against him. Stuff happened, but later on in Wrath of the Lich King, we eventually killed Arthas, and later she ventured to the top of the Frozen Throne. Once she got to the edge, 9 Valkyr appeared, encircling her, but with the downfall of the Scourge being complete, she threw herself off the Citadel. As she fell, she had a vision. In this vision, Garrosh recklessly committed most of the Forsaken armies to an assault on Gilneas, which failed. She then saw her people burning themselves rather than wait for the Alliance to come and finish the job. Then she saw an endless void filled with cold, hopeless fear. And down there, she saw Arthas, but in the form of a scared child. The Valkyr appeared again, and their leader offered to take her place in the void if she would form a pact with the remaining Valkyr. Sylvanas promptly noped out of eternal sadness and damnation and rejoined the living. Hurrah! Great stuff for her. After this, the Cataclysm stuff happened, and she started using her Valkyr to raise new corpses to bolster the numbers of the Forsaken, because, obviously, regular procreation, that's not really a thing when all your bits have shriveled off. Garrosh thought this stuff was very Lich King-ish, and you know what? He was probably right.
"Have you given any thought to what this means, Sylvanas? What difference is there between you and the Lich King now?"
Isn't it obvious, War Chief? I serve the Horde.
"Watch your clever mouth, bitch."
And Sylvanas actually got killed a few more times in various events, but each time one of the Valkyr would take her place. Much later on in War Crimes, she was reunited with her sister Verisa. Now, spoiler warning for the next bit. They plotted to assassinate Garrosh, though Verisa eventually backed off and warned Anduin, who was able to prevent Garrosh's death. The sisters also toyed with the idea of Verisa basically co-ruling the Forsaken, but since they would never accept a living leader, Sylvanas actually planned to murder her sister and then raise her up. A slight detail that she didn't really tell Verisa. Anyway, Verisa ended up realizing that she would have had to give up her children in Dalaran, and she declined Sylvanas' offer. These events really got to Sylvanas. The failure to assassinate Garrosh led to her going on a murderous rampage throughout the countryside, just killing animals that she saw out of hate and anger. Verisa rejecting the offer also hurt her a lot as well, and perhaps more deeper, since it was one of the few times where Sylvanas let down her outer defenses and actually opened up to someone. And all of that takes us to Legion, but I skipped a lot. Seriously, if you want the full picture, go watch Noble's video. This is just to fill you in for the sake of this video. Anyway, in Legion, shit's going to get really cool. First of all, let's talk about what Blizzard have not teased, in terms of the website content anyway, and that is the return of Illyria and Terulion, but Illyria is more important here. Illyria has of course been missing for many years. In fact, she was missing even before Sylvanas was killed by Arthas. Now, Illyria is also the eldest of the 3 sisters, with Sylvanas being the middle child and Verisa being the youngest. So, with Sylvanas' involvement confirmed, and we know that Dalaran is relocating to the Broken Isles, we know that the 2 known sisters are going to be in the region. So whenever Illyria returns, there's undoubtedly going to be a reuniting of the 3. Well, what could that do? First of all, Illyria has no idea what has happened to either of her siblings, what they've been through. Sylvanas has died a few times, that's been fun, and she's been up to some really dastardly shit. Vrys has also had a tough time too, with recently her husband dying in the bombing of Theramore, and her also taking a big role in the purging of Dalaran. That will probably be a very big hit, but it will also be an opportunity for character development between the three of them. Illyria is the oldest and likely the wisest given her years of experience fighting the Legion, both before and after her and Terulion's disappearance. She probably has a far more enlightened and cosmic view of the events that are going on within the universe. She will certainly have words for Sylvanas, but to explore what that might entail, we're going to have to actually cover what the Legion website alludes to. And that is the choice between her own life and the prosperity of her people. Currently, she only has a few Valkyr left, meaning that her own death is probably getting closer. She is going to have to make a massive decision once she is down to the final Valkyr. You see, the Valkyr are the only ones who can resurrect new members of the Forsaken in terms of the lore stuff anyway. Now, if that final Valkyr dies, the ability to create new Forsaken is gone. So how will her few remaining Valkyr die? Well, first of all, I think it makes a lot of sense that in the Broken Shore leveling experience, a few of them could die. After all, Blizzard did say that we will be shocked and surprised. Sylvanas herself could die in the Broken Shore and one of them could take her place, basically meaning there's maybe only one or two Valkyr left. Now, that decision, and whatever Sylvanas makes, should this be what they're alluding to, is going to set the course for the Forsaken's future, well, for a very, very long time. If she chooses herself over her people, she effectively dooms them to extinction. She also denies them a viable army, making them a far less useful strategic asset to the Horde. Another interesting thing about Legion, though, is that the factions are apparently at each other's necks, and they're back at war with each other because of the struggle for resources given the invasion from the Legion. Guess who's also on Legion's website as a principal character? Gen Greymane. Being a Worgen, you don't want to make that man angry, especially if you're the person who killed his son. Guess who put a poisoned arrow in his son? Yeah, it was Sylvanas. So if the factions are back at war, one of the very likely flashpoints that could pop up is the up to now unresolved battle for Gilneas. This, like the Broken Shore, is another opportunity for Sylvanas to lose a number of her Valkyr and potentially her own life, something which would lead to that monumental choice that Blizzard seemed to be alluding to. How does Illyria relate to these events? Well, it all depends on when she returns, which is something that we have zero clue about. Assuming Sylvanas saves herself, I think that they will use the morality of her decision to fuel a very sort of major character moment between the three sisters. If Illyria is going to be one of the new heroes of the Warcraft universe, similar to what they did with Khadgar in Warlords of Draenor, then having a tender and genuine moment like that would be an excellent way to establish the character as someone who is believable and relatable on an emotional level. So far, they like to make a character badass or make them do a big plot thing, but we rarely get to see what actually matters to a character, and that is, well, character development. Finally, there is the interaction between the Valkyries, which is what I'm calling them, I don't know exactly what they're called, in the Halls of Valor and the Valkyr. They were originally the same group, but of course the Valkyr ended up serving the Scourge. You can almost see them as the opposite to the sort of light, uncorrupted Valkyries that we're going to find in the Vrykul areas of this expansion. Hell, for an example, if Tyr returns, and that goes on, this might actually pit Sylvanas' interests against those of the Titans, perhaps even the Pantheon, should they return. Hell, Sylvanas could probably even try to use some of those Valkyries to replenish her stock of Valkyr. Anyway, that's most of the juicy plot that I can think of with Sylvanas. She's a terrifically interesting character, and there really is so much potential here, especially in terms of the deep character-building moments that are usually left to novels such as Warcrimes. I really hope Blizzard is able to pull it off, because if they do, it will tread new ground for them, and it might establish a few excellent, long-lasting characters for the World of Warcraft lore. Anyway, that's been it for me. Thank you very much for watching the video. Let me know what you think down in the comments or on my Twitter, and I'll see you next time.